welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I am co-host Nessa, and as you can hear, I may possibly be sick again. I
Oh
don't
my
know what's going
gosh,
on.
your immune system is getting a workout. Knock on wood, I haven't been sick in a while.
That's because you live alone. I live with two other
Um,
people.
that's
One
true.
one who works in
But
a
I
grocery
also work in a
store.
very public space, so
Oh, the library.
yeah.
I'm hoping it's just really bad allergies, but
See, that's another thing. Like, yes, was it yesterday? Yes, I worked yesterday. I was driving to work and I don't live that far, but I must have sneezed about 10 times in my car. And then I spent
it's
like the first hour of work just being like, I can't look at my monitor. Like, my entire face is just like having a bad day.
dude, I woke up yesterday and like everything on my head was itchy. Like my ears, my eyes, my nose, my throat. It was so bad.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the congestion started and the runny nose and it hasn't
Yeah.
stopped. Super bloom.
Ugh. Well, I think we know a couple of things happening in the hockey world are having a worse time than our sinuses. Um, starting with the Maple
Leafs.
Leafs. Oh man. So how much do you know about what happened?
I know that Dubas may have made a comment during a press release or something, press conference thing on a Monday, and a few days later they announced that they weren't going to re-sign him to the GM position. I didn't watch the press, like I didn't hear anything about it. I know that the the fans are upset because what's his name, Shanahan.
Brendan
Who
Shanahan, yeah.
is he, the owner?
No, so that I actually it seems that the Leafs and again we're not Leafs fans. So I learned the other day that he's like so he's like the equivalent of like Jonathan Becker,
Oh, okay, I see.
I think, at least by title. And the
But
owners is MLSC, so it's like a whole like organization who owns the Leafs. So it's not like with us with like the one owner.
wait, so is Jonathan Becker in charge of hiring and firing the coaches and
No,
stuff?
that's the thing.
GMs?
Like I think the hierarchy is a little different than what we're but then again, I can't say for certain like who exactly like Doug. We've only had like one GM, so and I think Doug Wilson stepped down. But I feel like, and you can even look at the Chicago team. Like the owner is very involved in like the interactions of like what goes down, and so I think it just really differentiates between teams. But I did
Okay.
find it. I was like, wait, hang on, what's his title? And I'm like, I don't understand. But all I know is I guess he's given like the authority or whatever it is to decide the dethroning of
The
personnel.
GMs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what
So I
I ended
know
up
that. Oh,
okay.
sorry. I was just gonna say that I've just seen a lot of fans upset with his decision because they're unhappy with Shanahan and felt like Dubas pretty much put the team in a position where they could go farther than they're used to, which they did. I mean, they got past the
Yeah.
first round, but I mean, what else can he do other than assemble the team together? It's the same thing that we would hear Sharks fan complaining about Doug Wilson. It's like he did his best to put these teams together. Like, what more could you want? The rest is on the team and the coaches.
Yeah. So I watched the presser with Dubas, and then after all this came out, I watched it again because I was like, did I miss something? Like, because it seemed, at least from if we're our team, like I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like the highlights for me from the presser was he like, I thought he did a really good job of kind of, I mean, maybe could have done better, but I've never been in a position where, like, I've been managing an entire team and have to, like, be asked on the spot, like, my feelings after we've just gotten knocked out of the second round. Like, there's a lot of emotion behind it. He, like, the main thing I felt came from it was he couldn't make a decision at that time whether he would be returning as GM because he really needed to spend some time talking about it with his family because he said his family, it also takes a toll on them.
That's fair.
And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like so what Brendan Shanahan had said was that prior to the presser, he had already. So in the beginning of the season, there was no contract extension. He had told him, like, hey, we don't have currently, I'm not going to give you one. And then I believe it was somewhere between, and I've got mixed information. It was somewhere between after the trade deadline and then the first round. I think it was more towards after they had already gotten past the first round, but somewhere in that time frame, he had approached Dubas and said, "Hey, we're going to extend you." And then he's like, "Cool, I'm going to have you talk to my agent." So they had their discussions with her. So they were already planning to extend him based on like what had happened between that time frame. And then when he had seen the presser, based on what he had heard from that kind of put him in like a bit of uncertainty of like, well, actually now I'm not sure if I want you to be our GM moving forward. And I feel like the part that probably steered him in that direction is that he had doubt about whether he wanted to continue to be a GM. And I like I can see it from both sides, I guess you can say, like from what I've seen from like the Steve Dangle podcast, like they're talking about how William Nylander and Mitch Marner are apparently like they're a couple weeks away from their no movement clause kicking in. So like things need to start rolling like quickly, which I don't envy anyone in that position at all. Like, how we get after the Sharks get knocked out of the playoffs. Like, I don't want to talk about hockey for like the next 5 months, but if it's your job, you just like, you kind of have to shelve that and be like, well, we need to get to work for the next season. Like, we can't even like process this properly, which is probably why he's taking the approach of like, hey, I need to like actually process this. Can you give me some time to process this? But, like he's looking at it from like Brendan Shanahan's looking at it from like a business perspective, which is awfully like cold, but it's like you can understand it in a sense, right? But I felt like because he wasn't like, oh, definitely, absolutely, like he wasn't putting on this front. He was being very honest about it. Like I can see why, given what they have to do in the off season, and he just all the pressure that the organization has with like what they have, like I can see why they decided to do that on top of Dubas had like later in the week after the presser, he had reached out to Shanahan and said, hey, like my agent, like I actually like now definitely would like to come back as GM. Like he had a couple of days or whatever to think about it. And he was like, hey, I'm going to have my agent reach out to you. And this agent reached out to him and they had a new financial package that they were asking for, which was basically he wanted a raise. more than what they were already going to give. And so I guess that plus what he had heard from the presser, he was like, no, I'm good.
Oh my
You can
god.
go.
He's not worth it, I guess.
I guess. So that's kind of what I took from watching Dubas's presser and then getting like the highlights from the Steve Dangle LFR, where he like went into the main points from Shanahan's media appearance. So, I mean, basically, they're kind of like in scramble mode now. I mean, with what I like mentioned earlier, with like those two key players, like if you're gonna do anything with the organization that affects your core, it needs to happen soon. Like, because if you decide you don't want to move them, then this is fine. But if you do want to move them, you got to do it quick, or you're gonna run into problems because their no movement clause is gonna kick in soon. And like a comment that was made about the way that Dubas handled things was that he was very determined with the core that he had, with the with the foresight that the salary cap was going to go up. So he was like basically signing them knowing that, you know, it's okay that we give them these contracts because moving forward, if we need to add more players or whatever, like I'm going to have the flexibility. And then, you know, 2020 or 2019 happened. And then, you know, we know how all that went with like the salary cap freezing
Yeah.
and putting him into like a tighter situation. And so they talked about like that. So I don't know if that actually goes into playing about like where they feel like maybe they need somebody with a different perspective. Like, I don't know. I can't tell you what a team should do, especially in a conference that is like so competitive. But like it goes back to like what you're saying, like, you know, there's only so much you can do before it like is on the players. And I don't know, like he was there for, I think within the organization he was there for like 8 years or 10, I can't one of those numbers,
He
and
won a
then was
Calder Cup
GM.
with the Marlies, right?
Yeah. And so he spent about half of that time as GM of the Leafs. So
I mean, it's not. It doesn't sound far fetched to me for him to ask for a raise, because, I mean, from the things I heard, it's hard to be a player in Toronto because of the media. I can only imagine what it's like being a GM of that team. The scrutiny he faces like on the daily. Some of it isn't even like fair. Like he went out of his way to sign like Tavares, who is now captain of the team, who's like the heart of the team. You know, he did he draft Matthews, Marner,
I want to
and
say
Nylander? Like he drafted, like he was part of that whole thing of getting these core guys that are like superstars. Basically, he has like I feel like there's superstars up and down that lineup. He went and got O'Reilly at the trade deadline, and I forget who else. I don't think he did a bad job. I think it's like I don't know. It could just be a hockey curse type thing. Like I don't know how much you paid attention to the second series that the Leafs played, but they looked like so lost out there. They didn't know what to do. Like, oh, we've never been to the second round before. What happens now? How is that Dubas's fault? I don't know. It's silly.
I'm just looking up when he started being GM. Let's see. No, he did not draft Matthews. Dubas was named general manager in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Either way, he's done a great job with like the core guys.
I mean, yeah, like lots of success during the regular season, but then once they get into the playoffs, I mean, it's a whole other can of worms. Like, I mean, even like their first round this year and just like the first game, they just look like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously they did finally get it together and like come back, but like
I guess the only
I
thing you can blame him for is not making a coaching change, but like Keith was making he was doing really well during the regular season. Like you can only hope it transfers over to playoffs.
well, as far as we know at the time of this recording, Keith has not been released. But Jason Spiza
Oh yeah,
resigned
I saw that.
after the information came out that the Dubas would not be coming back. And then apparently all the Marlies coaching staff was fired. it just felt like he was just, you know what, while I'm at it,
Just get rid of everyone.
while I'm on a high. someone I think like someone just like whoever steps into my office next.
You're
they just
fired.
go,
Get
you're
out.
fired. Get out of my face. I'm in a bad mood. Just like, no, leave me alone. No
You
one
get a
go.
severance package. You get a severance package.
I
Okay.
mean,
How would you feel? Their next GM hire, they bring in a Doug Wilson.
well, did you see Alex's
the
yeah, that's it.
meme.
Yeah. That would be so funny though. But speaking of GMs though, the Penguins organization
Oh yeah.
planning to reach out to do is that will be interesting based on like I'm not saying that he needs to, I don't know. Like he said during his presser that he's either the GM here or he's not being GM. Like he said, he does not feel like he could handle doing it anywhere else in the league. So he basically saying that his heart is here with the Leafs, and he's not. You won't be seeing him going out and like trying to find a GM position elsewhere. But whether that meant during his time in limbo or what exactly the parameters of that is, but like the Penguins saying that they want to like talk to him, I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah,
Like,
which like one of the comments I made when you brought that up is like it always sounds so silly to me when a team reaches out and asks for permission to talk to these guys. Like, may I please talk to this dude here,
good sir,
even though you have
may
no
may I
intention,
borrow some sugar?
may return. We'll see.
So good luck, Leafs fans. I mean,
Sorry.
the Sharks went through like this whole thing last year, but I just don't feel like it was anywhere close to what this is looking like.
What?
Because we were down in the bottom of the barrel where it's
Yeah.
like, yes, please, let's make changes,
Yeah.
versus they're kind of like, based on who they have on their team and the fact that they made the playoffs and all this other little stuff going on behind the scenes where it's like he had an extension, but based on like what I decided from his, all this little drama
Yeah.
aspect of it. Like, I just think it's far worse than when Doug Wilson needed to step down. And we're like, cool, yay, like optimistic stuff for the future because we're going to have big changes. But
Still waiting to see big changes, but imagine this had happened around the same time where Doug Wilson decided to step down this year instead of last, or if all of this with the Leafs happened last off season. Do you think the Sharks would have had a chance, had a chance at getting Dubas?
would you want Dubas though?
I don't know, because I haven't really paid attention to how the Leafs work. That they're so far from my interests.
Oh, another thing that was brought up during the presser, which I don't think that this would necessarily have anything to do with it, but who's to say I'm not Brendan Shanahan, he was apologizing for his behavior during the playoffs, like when you would get to see him up in like the press box and how he was reacting. Like I did not see a whole lot of it, but the one that I did see was when he was like upset, I think, during a play, or like maybe they lost and he like threw a water bottle. Like I didn't think much of it. Like some of the stuff that the players do, like I feel like it gets downplayed, but maybe because he's a GM or maybe because he's part of the Leafs organization, it just gets like blown out to like the highest proportions. But he was like apologizing for like how,
Having
that doesn't.
emotions.
Yeah, he's like, I'm an emotional person. And I was like, actually, all of us are emotional. Like, I just felt really strange that it just goes back to this whole hockey culture thing where I'm just like, oh my God, he has to like apologize for like being human. Like, I get that, maybe he'd done some other stuff that maybe I'd be like, oh, maybe that really doesn't look good. But I just felt like it's just such an awkward presser. Just how like that sort of stuff is conducted versus like how we kind of see it, like so far removed from like the big hockey markets and
Yeah.
being under a microscope. It just seemed like, God, how do you like
Handle it.
even with his like family, like I can see like how they can't even go out without potentially being recognized as
Yeah.
connected with the Leafs. And when people get quote unquote emotional and just start taking it out on people who just like, I have nothing to do with this, and even if I did, like, calm down.
I
Yeah.
feel like this is a good segue to head into a not big hockey market and talk about the stuff or touch on the stuff going on with the Coyotes. If you'd like to, you know more about this than I do, so
Yeah, so the Coyotes are trying to find their home, continuing to try and find their home, and recently Tempe had a special election, I think is what it would be called, where there were three propositions that needed to be voted on, and all of them would need to have a yes vote to move forward. Pretty much, they wanted to build a whole entertainment center, with the heart of it being the Coyotes' new arena. Earlier in the year, like we talked about it on a previous podcast, about how the city of Phoenix were suing them because they wanted to build it so close to the airport, and they were talking about how that like is against whatever regulations are set in place, because based on the fact that they wanted to also have housing as part of the arena. They're talking about, there's the whole sound issue.
was so like
So
affordable housing or like hotels and things.
I think, I don't believe it was affordable housing. I know that it was apartments,
Oh, okay.
but specifying what kind, I don't recall if any of that was set into place. But so they had that. So basically, voters voted it down. Apparently, the final turnout rate was actually quite high for Tempe's elections over like the last 13 years. The Coyotes had submitted their proposal of a 2.1 billion development to Tempe in late 2021, which involved building nearly 2,000 apartments, an NHL arena, and an entertainment district of 46 acres of land west of Tempe Town Lake. So pretty much initially the city council had unanimously voted for the pre-approval of the development plan, but then it went to this special election because of the controversial tax break that was included in the deal, which would spare the proposed arena from property tax over the next 3 decades.
Oof. Yeah, I would have voted no on that too. That's not fair.
The activist groups often oppose developments that receive those tax breaks and don't include any off-site affordable housing and the number of union workers it would employ. So pretty much that got voted down. And so even if the proposal had been passed, they would still have to deal with the whole Phoenix suing them.
Yeah.
And if the judge ruled in Phoenix's favor, then it would just make it impossible for the Coyotes project. So that ruling would have come after the election. But, that's irrelevant at this point. So, yeah, like what I was talking with you earlier before we hopped on, we're not going to talk about, oh, where should the Coyotes head out to now? Like, obviously, that we don't know enough about that information, and we also put ourselves in the shoes of Coyotes fans, where it's like there's already a lot of talk about, like the Coyotes Twitter. Like they had one post where they're like, where should we head to next? And that whole thing got completely ratioed. A lot of people probably not saying that they should stay in Arizona. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the fact that, well, one, it's crazy that they would get these tax breaks for like the next 3 decades.
30 years.
Like, even though they're saying, oh, we're
I'll
gonna
be
like
like
pay
60
for
by
the
then.
whole,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
like sure, yeah, you're gonna pay for the whole thing, but you're pretty much just gonna like, yeah, this is just the whole like capitalism aspect of it, where this guy is a freaking billionaire. Like, it, like I don't like. It's nice that you're gonna, you're trying to woo residents with like, oh, it's gonna create these jobs. You're gonna get this like sports team that apparently has only made it out of like the first round like once in like their time, and just, it, like, I, as someone who lives in an area where we have a lot of like
Techies.
successful businesses, yeah, and I'm pretty much in the heart of Silicon Valley. Like, I can see the effects of city representatives being wooed by these big organizations because they have, because they just get to be super excited about it. But then who does it affect at the end of the day when, like, let's take for example like Apple and like, the what's another big
Google.
tech, yeah, like all these businesses, I I don't see that as creating jobs for the residents here in the city. Like, how many transplants do we have coming in, and then they get,
Gentrifying our communities, but that's a whole different conversation. I just wanted to
yeah.
throw that in there.
So, and then like affordable housing isn't exactly affordable housing in this area anymore. So I just side with the voters who weren't going to take a chance on that. And I know it's frustrating, like, and I have given some time to even think about, let's say like that was happening here in this area and the Sharks were in that situation. Like, yeah, I would be torn because I really want them to stay in this city. But if it means that you're giving this billionaire tax breaks over the next 3 decades, and they didn't guarantee that there was going to be any affordable housing in these housing facilities that you would have in this arena, and especially the fact that you would not have as many union workers employed to actually build this entire entertainment area, which unions are so important. And I don't care if they're pricier. Like they're meant to be that way because of what they do for the everyday person. They're not advocating for the billionaire who is going to
Oh,
benefit from all this stuff.
yeah,
They're advocating for the person who's going to be affected by the things that are not being talked about.
yeah. Obviously everyone should know that unions are there to protect the workers and stuff. I moved to Vancouver for this job where there are no unions for my field of work. And, us as artists up in Canada, because there's no unions, get taken advantage of all the time. And, we get paid dirt and we are overworked. So I think it's unfair for some people to call these voters idiots for not wanting to have this facility built, knowing or unsure if the workers that they hire, that's supposedly this is going to create a bajillion jobs, they're not going to be protected, and taken advantage of just because, oh, we have to have a hockey team in this city.
Yeah. So I guess where do they go from here? Well, it looks like they're at least going to be here for the next year. I think Bill Daly, I think it was, from the NHL had come out the day after the vote to say that they're pretty much definitely gonna have the Coyotes there for like the next year. I mean, they're assigned to the college hockey facility for like the next 2 years. So like that's there, but I don't know. Maybe depending on some other things that come along the way as they try to figure out the future of it, maybe that can change. But um, it's just crazy. But yeah, I just wanted to just put my 2 cents out there, like we've just discussed, that the voters are not idiots. They're the ones that have to
Live with their
live in that
decision.
area. Like coming from our perspective, like living in this area, we can see the effects of when it gets a little too out of hand.
It's
And
like San
unions
Francisco right
are,
now is the butt of all jokes because of, the homelessness and, people making fun of the drug use and stuff. And it's like, you guys can make fun of it, but you have no idea what's going on here. That's something that the Tempe residents probably want to prevent.
yeah, and if it's at the cost of not having a sports team, well, I did see that Glendale, like, I think there may have been some, fear tactic of like, oh, well, if you don't have the team here, you're gonna like, not benefit from as much revenue or whatever. But since the team has left, like, they're doing just fine. So it's like, like not every city needs to have like some billionaire to like put them on the map to like be successful,
Billionaires are
especially
not
if they're,
heroes.
yeah.
I don't need a billionaire to save me. Thank you. I'm so-
Yeah, it's all good and fine when you're saying, oh, we're going to bring so many jobs, we're going to have this flashy new team, we're going to have extra
I
housing,
don't believe you.
and
You just want money.
yeah.
It's all for
Mm-mm.
you. I don't.
No.
Whatever. I'm over this conversation. You want to talk about the cake?
Yeah. So, yeah, so the Kane's graphics design team is really killing it for the last forever with like their hype graphics, which we will give them praise to. They're pretty amazing. But something that I've noticed from the Canes over the last couple of months, because I did a Twitter space with Michael from another Hockey Tomorrow contributor, we talked about the usage of alt text and captioning,
Yes.
because those are things that are available, especially on Twitter. I know that like on Instagram, like captioning, you can do like an auto enabling of that. I They do have alt text. I wish they would make it a little easier to find, but pretty much the tools are there.
Yes.
You just unfortunately have to take a little extra bit of your time to consider other people and do something about it,
Use it
right?
properly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so while the Canes do use, at least from my understanding, alt text, they haven't been using it properly.
Yeah.
They pretty much tell you what it is, like you can freaking see the graphic and just need like extra explanation of what you're looking at, or reiteration that yes, this is a photo of this person, just in case you didn't know, but not exactly using it in the way that someone cannot actually see this. You need to actually describe
The
what they
image.
should be
Yeah.
seeing. And at that point, if you're not using it properly, then what is the actual point? like,
Yeah.
but I think so. The positive side of that is, in like I think it was yesterday they were releasing
The
some
lineup.
graphics, and yeah, and they apparently got the message. I think it kind of came to a head when they posted a picture of some like chat GPT,
Yeah.
and they pretty much said this is a screenshot of that. And like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me?
A screenshot of the chat GPT answer, and they spelled screenshot wrong. There's a little
Like,
typo.
here is a lot of text.
It says,
Cool. As people who can actually see it, we can see there's a lot of text, but
yeah.
someone who can't see it has no idea. That's not helpful.
Yeah, the
That's
other
not the
one
point.
says artistic hype graphic promoting game one. When you should be describing, oh, it's the PNC Bank Arena. There's a panther standing in front of it, and like a hurricane, like right in between, like blocking the arena. Like, yes, it's intimidating. Describe what the image the image is for people who cannot see.
So, yeah, like I said, I think they got the message. And yesterday they were going into more detail, and I have to applaud them for that, cuz cool. At least
Progress.
at least they're seem to be reading the responses, which I'm sure like on a graphics post there's so many of them to go through, but whatever they ended up coming across, they recognize that we're not doing a very good job. And as folks who get paid to do this, it's such a simple, an easy thing to just spend a few more seconds. Like, even if it's like a text-based thing, you could just copy the entire damn thing into the damn alt text. It's really not that hard. Like, it does take some practice, to rework how you approach something. But imagine someone who is trying to get into the sport for the first time and has a hard time seeing things and really needs the usage of alt text. Like, how likely are those folks going to start following your team if you actually are like, hey, we see you, we want you to come in and like enjoy this sport with us, this team with us, and I'm gonna help you out by getting more engaged because I'm gonna use alt text correctly, versus another team, which there are a ton of teams in the NHL level alone that are not using alt text. And if I'm someone who is trying to get into the sport and would really like to see all this stuff that you're posting, I'm probably not going to get as interested in following a team that isn't even bothering to take the time to. It's not hard. It's literally not hard.
Do the Sharks use alt text? Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And they also, one of the examples I brought up during that Twitter Spaces is that the Sharks last season or this past season, they were doing a lot of those, like the players would come out and they'd have like a question for them to answer and whatever.
Yeah.
And one of them was taking place next to the rink. So there's a lot of noise, background noise happening, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm hard of hearing. Like, it makes it difficult for me to home in on like one person talking when there's so many things happening around me. And if you're going to set up there where there's a ton of background noise, you generally speaking, you should probably do captions because you can barely hear them with all the noise. And especially as someone who's hard of hearing and across the board, someone who's deaf, I'm less interested because I can barely hear what they're saying. And I really wanted to hear what they're saying. And I tweeted at them going, hey, it'd be really great if you could put captions on this stuff because I'm hard of hearing and I don't even know what this guy is saying. Yeah. And literally like the next day they had another thing and they had captions on it. It's like so easy.
Yeah. Aaron Hodges.
It's such a great feeling as a fan where you can feel seen by the team and they're like, I see you, I'm gonna help you out, and by extension help out other folks that are in your situation. And then especially for people who are deaf, like they do all kinds of cool stuff where they put things out, but if you don't put captions on them, you're basically telling folks that this is only for people who can hear.
Yeah. But there's progress.
Yes.
Slow progress, but progress.
Kudos.
Whoop, whoop.
Kudos to the Canes for recognizing that and starting to put in the work to be more inclusive. So one thing that I saw earlier this week is the UMass Amherst women's ice hockey is in a bit of a situation. They, due to a clerical error that was out of our control, we have been denied funding from our university for the first time in our history. This means that the 23-24 team will be funded entirely through fundraising and player dues. So let's see.
Looks like their goal is
pretty much
$45,000 and they're only at 4. So people, please donate if you can. Women's hockey is important.
Yeah, so all this money is pretty much, they're responsible for the expenses related to the game and practice ice and ice game officials, equipment, uniform, hotel, like a whole bunch of stuff that they really need funding for, and they could really use your help. So we're signal boosting. We're going to put out the link somewhere so folks can go and hop on there and donate. I mean, even if it's like $1, I know like folks are going through hard times. Hopefully, they can get the funding that they need to play because this is really crappy.
Yeah. Weird how this doesn't ever happen for men's sports. It's just interesting. And I guess we're going to end on kind of a sour note here, but I feel like it's important to talk about. Yes, this is a hockey podcast, but we also discuss LGBT issues. Pride is coming up literally in next week?
Just about.
Oh my gosh. Next week is Pride Month. Amazing. If y'all don't keep up with baseball, the Dodgers decided to do something a little sarcasm, crappy. They put out a statement the other day that said, in the spirit of unity, the Los Angeles Dodgers are proud to host our 10th annual LGBTQ plus Pride Night on June 16th. This event has become a meaningful tradition, highlighting not only the diversity and resilience within our fan base, but also the impactful work of our extraordinary community groups. This year, as part of the full night programming, I'm congested, it's hard to breathe. We invited a number of groups to join us. We are now aware that our inclusion of one group in particular, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, in this year Pride Night has been the source of some controversy. And here's where it gets really disappointing. Given the strong feelings of people who have been offended by the sisters' inclusion in our evening, And in an effort not to distract from the great benefits that we have seen over the years of Pride Night, we are deciding to remove them from this year's group of honorees. Thoughts before we get into the rest of it?
In my discussion with some of my hockey friends, I used that GIF that was like created years and years back of that like black dude who was like, "You are so dumb. You are really dumb." Like, first off, they're in California. Like, where do you think you are? Where do you think you are? Like, we're like the gay capital of the U.S. Like, this like the fact that they felt like they could just do, like, I don't know what they were thinking, but just the fact that they were just like, we're just gonna exclude this one group because we were threatened by some rando idiot senator or is he senator? I don't know anymore. That guy in Florida. Ooh, we're so afraid.
Who, the governor?
Like, no,
Wait, okay.
Marco Rubio.
Oh, what? Okay, so I think that's the part that confuses me. How does he play into this? I didn't see that part.
I don't know if he directly was the reason, but he definitely commented about this. And I'm pretty sure he like fueled his fan base. And like, I mean, we don't know. They didn't specify who it was, but we know a thing or two about how this comes about. And so stuff that I like, other articles that I read in regards to this had mentioned Marco Rubio's talking about this. So, whatever the case may be, you know that they were threatened or felt like they needed to do something based on the fact that folks were saying that this group is anti-Catholic, which in their statement they released, this was from the San Francisco Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, condemns the Los Angeles Dodgers' decision to withdraw a promised honor to the sisters. So pretty much the organization is a leading edge order of queer and trans nuns in San Francisco, California. Today, they expressed their deep offense and outrage to the Los Angeles Dodgers' recent decision to retract their offer of a Community Hero Award to be presented to the Los Angeles Sisters following criticism from religious conservatives. The Dodgers, their response to hateful and misleading information from people outside of their community who target not only LGBTQ plus community, but also women's autonomy over their bodies, people, and communities of color and other faiths and nationalities.
Okay, so just on that, this group is an order of queer and trans nuns in San Francisco.
They are utilizing the aspect of nuns to be more inclusive. So in the statement, they said the sisters are not anti-Catholic, but an organization based on love, acceptance, and celebrating human diversity. It's statistical fact that children are less at risk in the company of drag queens than like clergy.
Yeah. So, listen. All I'm getting from this is that Christians, Catholics, religious folks who are against this type of thing, these groups who are trying to be more inclusive, only want to spread hate. They don't want to include the queer community in any sense. They basically want to get rid of us, right? Like, conform to our beliefs or we'll condemn you to hell type thing. I don't see anything wrong with this.
So what is their stance on Sister Act then? Because like I'm pretty sure that's not like what the Catholic Church looks like. I'm pretty sure they don't bring in people from like Las Vegas to like help them out.
I don't know, man. In response to this, LA Pride also put out a message that says, As a long-standing partner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, we are very disappointed in their decision to rescind their invitation to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to be honored at the 10th annual LGBTQ Pride Night. As a result, and in solidarity with our community, LA Pride will not be participating in this year's Dodgers Pride Night event. Pride is a fight for equality and inclusion for the entire LGBTQ plus community, and we're not going to stop now. Let's make this year's Pride celebration louder than ever. Now, I have conflicting thoughts on this, but I don't know if you want to speak on yours before I say my piece.
I think you definitely need to stand alongside your queer brothers, sisters, siblings,
Yes.
and not attend this event, because this event, it has now become not inclusive.
Right. And I get that. I completely understand. I'm for that side of it. What is conflicting for me is it feels like this is what the conservatives want. They don't want Pride Nights anymore. They don't want to see any of these events happening at any sports events, and I feel like this is a way that they're getting what they want, you know. So it feels sucky because it's like, yes, stand by the entire community, because why would you exclude someone who is part of the community who you supposedly say you're celebrating? It's just dumb. But also, like, it's this double-edged sword in my opinion. It's a sucky
Well, if
situation.
they hadn't done that, then I feel like the only option, if they were to attend, is that they have to find a way to make that known.
Yeah.
They have to be put in a situation where which the Dodgers probably wouldn't let them, because you're pretty much like, coming in, but then you're sabotaging them
Yeah.
in a sense, which I don't think that they would allow to happen. So given the hurdles to try and make that happen, I think retracting it would be more effective. And I know I do see what you're saying about, like, oh, this is exactly what they wanted to happen. But that's like on the Dodgers then. Like, I mean, it's not like this is new to them. They've been doing this for quite some time. And I actually saw that, like, that game, they're going to go against the
Yeah.
Giants. And I was saying the Giants should just have the sisters hang out with them in the dugout. Like, that would be so funny if they're just like, oh,
Show them
these
up.
are like bat people. They're gonna come in like, and then like the ball girls. They're just gonna.
Oh my god. Like the old peoples that they have collecting the balls when they get like foul balls and stuff, instead have them be drag queens or like the sisters.
That would just
That'd
be
be
hilarious.
amazing.
Like, maybe if they, like, I feel like it probably wouldn't be able to happen like at this game, but it would be awesome for the Giants' pride
Yeah.
if they invited the sisters to just come hang out with
Yeah.
them.
That'd be
Giants
great.
fans, Giants organization who listens to this podcast, please make it happen.
Sure. I guess another point of the LA Pride retracting is like that means it's costing them money in a sense, because after this, a lot of queer folks are going to want to go to this Dodgers game. So I hope that they lose business over this for sure. The Dodgers, not the Pride.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about, it'd be great if queer folks who may have already gotten tickets, like I think by not going, I mean, they still get your money anyway, which is, but like it would, the perfect scenario would be hardly anybody showing up.
Yeah.
But I don't
Or
think that that's like possible.
some form of protest where everyone shows up in drag or something, you know?
Yeah, everybody who was planning to go, like, don't even bother going into the stadium. Just like hang out outside. Like, the sisters should come out and like they should just have a freaking drag party outside, and like no one should go in and watch the game.
Yeah. We'll see what happens,
Well,
but
yeah.
that sucks.
So Screw you, Dodgers.
This is why I'm a Giants fan. Just kidding.
just like it would have. I would have given you praise if you'd done something really cool, but then you were like, "Hold my beer. I'm actually not that cool." But to end on a positive note, so I did watch the WNBA the other day. I had fun. Basketball is not as exciting to me, but I did enjoy watching Brittany Griner out there to play her very first game back, and it happened to be against the Los Angeles Sparks, who have out non-binary person, Laisha Clarendon, which I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, at least two queer people that I'm aware of, like, in this game. So I was mostly just like watching it for them and like kind of going, when then like something really cool happened, but like I wasn't like captivated like the first time I watched like hockey.
Yeah.
But I'll probably keep up. It feels kind of weird to like think I'm maybe gonna follow like an LA team because that's just like ew.
Yeah.
But
Why doesn't the Bay Area ever get women's sports? It's so annoying.
we gotta make it happen.
Well,
Because that would definitely get me into watching and maybe attending a game.
yeah.
Because yay, women's sports and more queer people.
We have to wait for the soccer team. Still waiting for them to announce a name.
All right. So I think that's all we've got.
Hope we didn't bore you.
Yeah, so like in a week their Pride is gonna start and we should definitely think of some stuff
Just
to
wait.
celebrate on the pod.
We were supposed to do that thing we never talked about because my life got hectic. We'll talk about that off camera though. But yeah, it just
Leave people on a cliffhanger. They're like, what are you talking
womp
about?
womp.
All right, so we're done because the Stars and that other team are playing now.
That other
so
team
we're
in
gonna
the
go
desert.
watch them. Which California is not rooting for. Screw that. Whatever.
Graphic.
Like poorly analyzed use of Twitter to decide how many of these states are rooting for what team. California is not rooting for that team. No. I speak on behalf of Californians when I say
The entire state. You're wrong. How dare you?
yes. Okay. Go Stars or something.
Go Pavelski. That's it. That's all I'm rooting for.
Go Robertson.
Oh yeah, him too.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes. All right. That's it for our episode this week. As always, I am your host, Jay.
I'm other host Nessa. Hopefully I'll be less congested next time. Bye.
Alrighty. Bye.